In this video, I'm going to walk you through everything you actually need to qualify for a DSCR loan, including some backup moves that most lenders won't even offer when your numbers don't hit right away and when the loan doesn't qualify. So let's get into it. The whole premise of a DSCR loan is that the property qualifies on itself, not on your personal income. So no W-2s, no tax returns, no personal income checks, no pay stubs. The lender looks at one thing: does the rent cover the mortgage? The ratio is called debt service coverage ratio. The math is pretty simple. You take the gross rent and divide it by the total mortgage payment, which includes principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and any HOA fees. If that number is 1.0 or above, or a 1-to-1 ratio and above, you're in good shape. If it's below 1, you're not automatically out, but we'll get to that in a minute on some tricks up my sleeve on how to fix that. Now, here's what people don't understand. They hear no income verification and they think that means no documents. And that's not how this works. This is closer to a no-doc loan, but it's not exactly a no-doc loan. So let's take Marcus, for example. Marcus owns 5 rental properties. He comes to me thinking that the DSCR loan is going to be the easiest thing he's ever done. No income docs, easy approval. But when we get into the file, he's got mortgages on all 5 properties, right? He's been scaling, he's been buying a ton of properties, and now at this point, he's got 5 rentals, each with a mortgage. And the credit report isn't showing the most current payment history, which sometimes happens. The underwriter needs mortgage statements on every single one, not tax returns or insurance documents, but they still at least need to see mortgage statements so they can verify he's been paying on time, or VOMs, verification of mortgages. This is one of the most overlooked requirements. Your payment history matters a lot. If you're 30 days late on a mortgage, most underwriters are going to stop right there. And that's a hard stop for most lenders. You have to be current and you have to have multiple rental properties, especially to pull a statement on every mortgage you can carry. If it's a private lender situation, you can sometimes get a verbal or written verification of mortgage instead, which is called a VOM, as I mentioned earlier. But for anything institutional, they want the actual paper. So what else do you actually need? Let's talk about credit score. DSCR loans go down to 620 and you can still get approved at that number, but of course the catch is that a lower credit score usually means more money down if you're buying, somewhere around, let's say 25 or 30% down instead of 20% down. And if you're trying to do a cash out refinance with a lower credit score, they're just going to cap your LTV and make it pretty tight, right? Whereas if you have a really good credit score, they might let you go up to 75 or maybe even 80% LTV. But if you have a bad credit score, they might cap it at like 60 or 65 LTV, just as an example. In that situation, a HELOC, though, if you don't have the best score, might actually get you more money. But if your score is 680 or above, you're in a solid spot. And honestly, I think you probably have enough flexibility on how we can structure things. But home equity lines of credit, we do a lot of them on rentals. That's another viable option. Now let's talk about what happens when the rent doesn't quite hit a 1-to-1 ratio. So if the gross rents don't cover that mortgage payment. This is where a lot of deals die that don't have to. So say you've got a property where the numbers are close, but not quite there. The rent covers the mortgage, but not all of it. There are a few ways to get a deal across the line. One is switching to an interest-only loan, which drops the monthly payment a little bit and can push the ratio over 1.0. Another is going to a 40-year loan instead of a 30, which also lowers the payment. And a third, which almost nobody else in this market offers, is dividing a borrower's liquid assets by 36 months and counting that as income. It's my favorite thing right now. Here's what that looks like in practice. If you've got $100,000 sitting in a bank account, we divide that by 36 months, right? Which is 3 years. That is $2,777 per month in additional income that we can use to bridge the gap on your DSCR ratio. It's aggressive and it works. And you're not going to find that on most lenders. Now, at the time of this recording, it's 36 months, but I'm hearing that they might extend it out to 6 years, right? So 6 times 12 is 72. So 72 months instead of 36 months. But either way, you can divide up your assets and use that for income. Reserves are the other piece people totally underestimate. After your down payment and closing costs, you typically need 6 months of mortgage payments still sitting in some US account. Can't be from Taiwan or Colombia or whatever. It's got to be a US institution. So whether it be checking, savings, retirement, etc. So quick example. If your mortgage payment is, let's say, $1,500 a month, that's a $9,000 in reserves that you need and the lender needs to see. On a cash out refinance, most lenders will let you use the proceeds from the cash out as your reserves. You're not pulling from your own pocket. But now let's talk about the LLC question because this one comes up constantly. People think if their LLC is brand new, they can't use it to close on a DSCR loan, and that's not true. The lender does not care how long your LLC has been open. They just need to see that the entity information is valid and that it's active so they can record the title and the mortgage correctly. You could open an LLC the week before closing, and we've done that, and many clients have done that, and it's completely fine on a purchase. This is one of those myths that probably has cost investors months of unnecessary waiting because they think they need to have their LLC open for a long time. You don't have to close in an LLC either. You can close in your personal name if that's what you prefer. The choice, honestly, is up to you. Now let's talk about rental income and how underwriters actually calculate it, because this part matters the most and most people don't even find out until they actually are already deep in the process. When you have a tenant in place, the appraiser goes out and assesses what the market rent should be. Then the underwriter looks at two numbers, what your lease says and what the appraiser says. And so they always use the lower of the two. So if your tenant is paying $1,500 a month, but the appraiser says the market rent is $1,300, the underwriter is going to base the DSCR ratio on the $1,300, the lesser of the two, unless you can show 2 months of bank statements proving you've actually received that $1,500 a month from that tenant. If you can show that, they'll give you the higher number. Of course, this applies for refinances. This doesn't apply for purchases. 2 months of receipts is the threshold, and that's what they look for. If the property is vacant, there's no lease to compare. The underwriter just goes off of whatever the appraiser says the market rent is. That's your number. And here's something that most of my investors do that potentially could mess up your deal. If you just signed a brand new lease maybe a month ago, the underwriter is going to want more than just the lease document. They want to see proof that the tenant actually paid first month's rent, security deposit, and bank statement showing the money hit your account. A lot of guys will come to me, get a brand new lease showing like 2x the income and be like, oh, look, here's my lease. We got to go off this number, right? We can't show, and we have a lot of deals that messed us up because they showed a new lease agreement. And so that's why we want to be careful when we send docs to underwriting. We review things first to make sure we don't ruin the deal. So you can't just show a new lease agreement. You have to show that the tenant actually paid that money to you, right? So if you can't show the money came in, the underwriters are going to question the validity of the lease. One more option I want to make sure you know about is that if you want to pull cash out quickly and you already have a tenant in place, we have a no-appraisal DSCR program. You can skip the appraisal entirely. You can either do a HELOC or a fixed program. The property just has to be currently rented and not vacant. That speeds up the whole process significantly if you're trying to move fast. Let's put the full picture together. You need the rent to cover the mortgage at a 1-to-1 ratio or better. And if that doesn't, then there are ways to fix that. You need a clean mortgage payment history across all your properties, credit score of 620 or above, with better terms, of course, if your score is better, 6 months of reserves after closing, and you need to understand how underwriters calculate income from your leases. Because of that number, they might not be the number you're expecting. If you're trying to figure out whether a specific deal qualifies, book a call and we'll run the numbers with you. Now, you know what it takes to qualify. The next thing investors get wrong is how to actually size the deal before they make an offer. If you don't run the numbers correctly up front, you can qualify for the loan and still end up with a property that doesn't cash flow or a loan that dies halfway through. I break that down step by step so you're not wasting so many hours and thousands of dollars on deals that don't make sense. We'll break it down step by step in this video right here.